Following Trump's decision to cancel the White House celebration of the Philadelphia Eagles, there was a lot of spin in the right-wing media about who these players are and what they've done. In fact, there was a misrepresentation of them kneeling during the national anthem throughout the season, which did not actually happen. Not a single player kneeled during the national anthem throughout the season. There was one player who did in the preseason, but he didn't even play in the regular season. So now with that said, keep in mind that Fox News specifically ran still images of Eagles players kneeling, and they represented it as them kneeling during the national anthem, when in reality, they were kneeling during prayer way before the national anthem even played. Why would they do that? Gee, I wonder why. Okay. Also, after Trump falsely implied that players of the Philadelphia Eagles protested during the national anthem, Fox News aired a segment that furthered Trump's lies. And I'll give you an example. By the way, the specific segment that I talked about earlier has been scrubbed from the records. It's nowhere to be found online. They did issue an apology because the criticism was overwhelming. But there were similar narratives playing out in other shows. So let's take a look at Fox and Friends.
The president's very simple on this. He says there are certain things that you do. When you are invited to the White House, you go and you go proudly. When the national anthem plays, you stand and you put your hand over your heart.
Not really. Not if you have 9 instead of 70. That is an outright disrespect to the president.
I wonder if any of the members of the Gold Star families yesterday at that event would have said we don't want to come to the White House.
Look,
what a difference, right?
Same thing with the Warriors. Right. I don't feel like I want to go. I don't like this president. They spend the whole season criticizing the president.
There seems to be a disconnect between the people in the NFL and the American public. So ultimately, the president realizes the people are probably on his side.
Listen to this mayor, a fragile egomaniac. Dude, what does he understand about the Eagles weren't going to show up? 9 players are showing up.
Ultimately, though, this historically is a non-political event.
Okay, can I just, let me give you context on that, because that is not really true. Now, a lot of people, a lot of athletes have started not showing up at the White House because Donald Trump attacks them. So he made it political. It's not like, hey, I didn't like the president because of his stance towards Puerto Rico, which is a fair thing to say. No, in the case of the NFL, he said, you all should be fined or maybe fired if you speak out in a way that I don't approve of, which, by the way, is political correctness. And so do you blame people for not showing up to a guy who wanted them fired if they dared to speak out as an American? And then he called them un-American, let alone Chris Long donating every check that he gets in all the games to charity, let alone the work Jenkins and others on the Eagles have done. Carson Wentz has raised money for the people of Haiti. These are all like amazing guys. And he has the nerve to call them un-American. But it's not just about Trump. Other people have not shown up to meet presidents before. And the one famous case that I'm going to tell you about where Fox was on the exact opposite side. But before I get to that, I did not know this. Larry Bird apparently skipped a visit with Ronald Reagan. Okay, now Larry Bird's a hero to a lot of those folks, but they don't know his actual views. Okay, and so now I remember in my lifetime, when I first noticed it, to be honest, was Mark Chmura, who made a big deal. He was a tight end for the Packers. They won the Super Bowl, and he said, I will not go see Clinton, because he thought Clinton was had the wrong morals. And Monica Lewinsky affair and all that whole thing. So Chmura made a big deal about it. At the time, the right wing was like, what a patriot Mark Chmura is.
Of course, that does not surprise me at all.
And they're like, that is what a true American does. He makes sure that he does not go and see the man who sullied the White House.
And imagine what their reaction would be if Clinton took some sort of action against the player, right? Who decided to protest and not go to the White House for the celebration. Just imagine what their reaction would be. Like, that's the part that gets to me. Like, right now, the right wing is wholly supportive of our president taking punitive action against anyone who disagrees with him. And by the way, it goes further than this whole NFL story. He's threatened to take press credentials away from media that criticizes him. He can't handle any criticism, which is a scary thing to consider as someone who's the president of the United States. He's supposed to be criticized by the media. The media is supposed to hold him accountable for his actions.
By the way, a disastrous ending to that Mark Chmura story. Chmura, the man who was worried about Bill Clinton's morals, later charged with sexually assaulting his 17-year-old babysitter.
Jeez.
Now, he was acquitted, but did say at the end, it's probably things I shouldn't have been doing as a married grown man. Okay, but he was worried about Bill Clinton's morality. And if you were worried about Bill Clinton's morality, wait till you get a load of Donald Trump. So finally, you might be wondering, why did Fox News apologize? They almost never apologize. They almost never correct the story. Well, a lot of the players they were showing were white, okay? Now, this is my thesis. They're on the record for correcting the story and saying they were wrong. But it wasn't just they were white. The reason they were on a knee, that Fox pretended it was because it was during the anthem. But the real reason is that they were praying. So guys like Zach Ertz, the tight end for the Eagles, is like, wait, you're going to get on me for praying before a game and all of our teammates for praying before the game? It's like, what kind of propaganda is this? Now, I don't know Ertz's politics at all, right? But when you have all the players saying, you're criticizing us for praying, all of a sudden, and a lot of those players, again, are mixed, black, white, etc., and maybe mixed in Democrats, Republicans, and the word gets out, and all the local papers in New Jersey and Philly covered it, all of a sudden Fox is like, yeah, no. I mean, okay, fine. We were pretending it was during the anthem, but it wasn't. But it's our honest mistake.
Yeah. By the way, I wanted to read a few tweets to you from those who kept pushing this narrative that it's all because they didn't stand for the national anthem. First, Charlie Kirk, who spreads ridiculous, nonsensical propaganda onto college campuses and pretends like he's an incredibly smart person, tweeted the following: if you refuse to stand for the national anthem, you have no business being honored at the White House by our president. So in other words, he is supportive of elected officials, punishing people who refuse to show honor to them. Kind of like what dictators do, right? Don't dictators do that? Isn't that something that you were concerned about under the Obama administration?
And secondly, I thought the conservatives on campus were most worried about freedom of speech. Oh my God, Ben Shapiro didn't get paid $20,000 from you students to speak here. I'm worried about free speech.
And their argument, which by the way, this is a correct argument, is that on publicly funded college campuses, free speech matters, right? You can't have the administration banning certain forms of speech just because they don't like it. And I agree with that. But guess what else is funded by taxpayer dollars? The White House. Government. Government is paid by us, the American people. So we have the right to exercise our free speech and criticize the president or decide to kneel during the national anthem if we want to raise awareness about a legitimate issue of police brutality in the country. He's very smart. Like, that's what you hear over and over again. They keep perpetuating this nonsensical talking point about how smart these young conservatives are. Yet they're hypocritical at the very least and incredibly uneducated on what our Constitution is and what the freedom of speech means, what the First Amendment means, and what our protections are.
So we are consistent. We defend the conservatives' right to go speak at those universities. Now, Charlie Kirk, do you understand, and all the other so-called intellectuals? I don't know that anybody's actually calling Charlie an intellectual, but I'm always amused.
Definitely. I mean, Candace Owens called him the smartest person she's ever met over and over again.
No, to be fair, he might be the smartest person Candace has ever met.
That's true.
Okay, it's a really low bar. Anyway, so Charlie, do you understand that the president threatening punitive action, including legal action and financial action against the NFL owners and the players if they don't fine or fire the players for speaking, is actually a core First Amendment issue? That is the government taking action to prevent your free speech. And yes, the Supreme Court has ruled over and over again, physical acts like taking a knee or raising your fist or even staying in the locker room. Yes, that is an expression of speech. It's a very obviously political speech. They're making a political point about police abuse.
Right.
So the reality is, if you're against that, you should never, ever mention free speech again, because you do not understand the concept at all, and you're not in favor of the First Amendment.
And one more tweet from Britt McHenry. This is my favorite. Can't wait for Eagles players to use this as an opportunity to virtue signal. That's all we need to read. I just wanted to read the virtue signal. There is nothing more apparent or There's no better example of virtue signaling than talking about how you are more patriotic than everyone else because you support standing during the national anthem. They always project, always, over and over again. You are virtue signaling in your tweet. Your tweet is an example of virtue signaling.
Anna, I missed that, and I love that you caught that. Wrapping yourself in the flag is as virtue signaling gets.
I'm very patriotic, everyone. I need to let everybody in the world know that I would stand during the national anthem and I would punish people if they refuse to do so.
And by the way, you conservatives, you're sure you're tougher than the Philadelphia Eagles? You want to get in the ring with them and see what happens? I don't counsel it. But hey, have at it, Hoss. 2 easy ways to follow the Young Turks. One is hit the subscribe button down below, then you're a TYT subscriber. And second is ring the bell. And when you do that on YouTube, you're notified of our videos.